After a large failure in an internet startup, Chris Meaux took one last shot and founded a food delivery app called WAITR, which, to date, has done over 2.1 million orders. Stay tuned. This is Sheauxtime. Sheauxtime is a weekly podcast where I interview some of Acadiana's most inspiring and influential people. To stay up to date with release schedules, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, all under Sheauxtime Podcast. That, of course, is spelled the Cajun way, SHEAUX Time Podcast. Also, if you'd like to sponsor this podcast, get in touch with me at SheauxtimePodcast@gmail.com. Again, Sheauxtime, spelled the Cajun way. And now, on to the interview. I'm here with Chris Meaux, the founder and CEO of WAITR. Chris, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited to speak to you because WAITR has had such explosive growth in the past couple of years, and it's amazing being an Acadiana company and from Louisiana. But before we even get into all of that, I really am excited to talk to you about kind of before WAITR, because it seems like you've been an entrepreneur from the very get-go, and you've been a part of many companies, different roles, co-founder, some directors of e-commerce. So tell me a little bit about your history in business.
Okay. I went to school here in Acadiana at Notre Dame High School in Crowley, then went to LSU, and while I was in college at LSU, I started working for Computerland, which is a computer reseller, and that was in the late 80s, back in the days when IBM and Compaq and Apple dominated the PC market. And Computerland picked up a brand of PCs called Hyundai, and I sold Hyundai to the home computer or to home users and small businesses. And so I got recruited by Hyundai to join them in Dallas-Fort Worth right out of college, and that was really the beginning of my career in technology. From there, I went on to work for McAfee Software, and then started my foray into entrepreneurship, I guess, started in the late 90s, early 2000s, back in the internet heyday when the internet was first getting going, and did a couple of startups back then. But I've had a number of different startups over the years, none nearly as successful as we have been to date with WAITR. But entrepreneurship's always been in my blood. It's, I guess you could call me a serial entrepreneur. But have had ups and downs and successes and failures, and have just kept going, and now here we are with WAITR.
Well, tell me a little bit about some of those earlier adventures in entrepreneurship.
Well, I started a company called Business Web Now back in the late 1990s, and it was fairly successful. We ended up selling it to a company out of New Orleans, and we rolled it into another startup that was a spinoff of that. That was a huge failure. And at that point, it almost ended my entrepreneurship career because I felt like I had done something, that I hadn't done something right, or it was something that I did that caused the failure. It wasn't until many years later, in fact, the catalyst to starting WAITR, that I realized it was not really anything that I did that caused the failure. It was the lessons that I didn't know back then that I now knew through that failure, the things that I learned through that would allow me to be a success in entrepreneurship again. And so in 2013, I gave it another shot and started WAITR. And here we are a few years later, and WAITR is in 22 markets in 4 states and continues to grow rapidly every month.
It has, absolutely. I mean, I wanted to talk to you about it because, it's funny. I drive down Johnson Street, for those that are out of town listening. It's one of the main streets here in Lafayette. And, every single business, every restaurant, find us on WAITR. Even McDonald's, even Sonic, so y'all are everywhere now.
Right.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible. Just seeing the WAITR yard signs out in front of the restaurants as I drive around town. Every day I have to, pinch myself and say, is this real? Is it really happening? But it is, and I think it's a testament to perseverance in entrepreneurship. Just when I thought I would give up entrepreneurship, one other idea came up, and I acted on it, and it's turned into WAITR.
Well, let's talk about the inception of the idea then. Where did it come from, and about, what time was that? I mean, I know you had Moe's to Go,
Right.
So was that kind of like an early version of WAITR before maybe the app?
Yeah, so I was in technology for a long time, got out of it after the big failure that I had with that internet startup, and got into the restaurant business. People will tell me, I was crazy, and now I see that, but I didn't know it back then.
Right.
It's a tough business, but I started a test concept after being in the restaurant business for a couple of years. Started a test concept to people could order on the internet, and we would cook the food and then deliver it.
What year is this around?
This is around 2009.
Okay.
2009, 2010, somewhere in that end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And it worked out great, but it was a 3-month test concept because I was renting a kitchen that a friend of mine had a building that had a full test kitchen in the building because a kitchen equipment company was his tenant. I talked them into leasing it to me for 3 months to test this Moe's to Go concept. It worked great, but I was never able to find permanent real estate to roll the concept out on a full-time basis, and so I kept it in the back of my mind. Ended up moving back to Louisiana in 2011 for other reasons, and then in 2013 wanted to organize a startup weekend, which is an event sponsored by Google, throughout the world. So I traveled to Gainesville, Florida to participate in a startup weekend, to organize one in Lake Charles, Louisiana, in the Seed Center that was brand new back then. And I participated. We actually started WAITR. 54 hours later, came out the winner of the competition there and had a startup. And I decided, all right, I'll give entrepreneurship one more shot, and we did. And so myself and 4 other co-founders, Adam Brennan, Manuel Rivero, Addison Killebrew, and Evan Diaz-Diarcy, we joined together in December of 2013 and started WAITR.
And so I guess when you were first coming out with this idea, well, I guess about 13, but before that, apps kind of on the smartphone were still relatively new, especially around like 2009. They hadn't had those on-demand apps. It was more like games and stuff. Mm-hmm. So how long did it take you to kind of come up with the idea of it being like instantaneous from an app rather than like a website,
Yeah, so in 2013, we were about 3.5 years into real app development, I guess you could say. The iPhone came out in 2007. App Store came out, I think, in 2008. People started building games, like you said. I had a choice. I had a choice of building a website or building an app. And what I saw back then was that technology was moving to the mobile device. In fact, I didn't even have an iPhone back then. I had an Android device. And so, the apps on Android were not as good as the apps on iPhone at the time. But I knew that that's where it was going to go. And so we didn't even bother with building a website to order. We actually went straight to the app building process. And so one of my co-founders, Adam Brennan, was an iOS developer, or a self-taught iOS developer. And Manuel Rivero, who does all of our back-end development, was an electrical engineer and just graduated with his master's in electrical engineering, but was a very smart guy, and I knew he could learn how to build back-end architectures to support app development. And so I brought those 2 guys on as co-founders, and that's what we did. We started building WAITR as an app. And in fact, we were only an app. You could only order through the app up until just February of this year. So still 96% of our business goes through the app.
Wow. Well then, yeah, take me through kind of the early steps of designing the app and, coming up with the name and the logo and all that kind of stuff. How long of a process was that for you guys?
Yeah, so the name was instantaneous. At Startup Weekend, they said, what are you going to call it? We just, for lack of a better name, we said WAITR with no E, and that's what we had. And one of the members on the Startup Weekend team was with another company called Feather that had no E, so it was FEATHR, and so we just became WAITR with no E. So that was pretty easy. We didn't think it was going to be a name that we would stick with long term, but it was. To come up with our logo, we hired a local graphic artist in Lake Charles, Eric Jessen, who is he was the head of the arts department at Suella College in Lake Charles.
Oh, okay.
And he did several different designs, and we came up with this one as the design we liked, and now it's recognizable throughout the Gulf South. And
The signature green.
We're happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the signature green bow tie, right?
Right. Absolutely. So when did it really kind of start taking off for you? I mean, the idea of like food delivery has been around, but you kind of do it in a little different way, and in a similar way to where, you know, you can, both on the consumer side, you can get your food faster, and on a self-entrepreneurial side, you can work for WAITR and make a little side income. So
Right.
when did, like, you know, how did that process work? Were you like immediately, was it just you guys delivering food for a little while, or did you hire straight out the gate? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, so the first drivers were the co-founders and myself. I mean, we built the software, we signed up the restaurants, we were the customer service representatives, we were the drivers, we did all of it. So it was just the five of us, and then we brought on a couple of additional people, Jude Meir, who happened to be my brother-in-law and was in between jobs, and we could bring him in, and Katie Davis, who was someone that we brought in to help us do sales. And those were two of the first people that we hired as employees of the company. Garrett Zinke was one of our software developers. So those are the first three people we hired beyond just the five co-founders to work for the company. But we did it all in the beginning, and that's really how startups have to start. You have to start in a non-scalable way with scalability in mind. And so we were all too happy to be the first drivers, and it got to be a challenge after a while, you know, building a company and being the drivers and trying to hire other people and so on.
Right.
But it's what entrepreneurship's all about, and it's what entrepreneurs have to do in order to build a successful company.
So what was the first week like? I mean, was it just your family, you know, ordering off the app just to make sure y'all were doing some business, or did it pick up pretty quickly?
Yeah, so we signed up 3 restaurants, and we told them, look, you know, we're going to go get you all this business. And for the first several months, it was basically, you know, my parents, myself, my wife and I, our friends, our kids, folks like that. We were the only ones. I mean, I can remember a time in early 2015, well, late 2014, I guess you could say, when we started getting orders from people we didn't know. Like, we had never had that before, right? It was just people we knew, and all of a sudden people we didn't know found the app and somehow downloaded it before it was even in the App Store through TestFlight or other applications that we were using at the time to test the app, and started using it. And so we started to think we might have something then, and then we put it in the App Store in early 2015, and people started downloading it for everyday use. And then we started delivery in February of 2015. At that point, a lot of people we didn't know started using it, so we knew we had something.
I got 2 questions. A is, you know, were you marketing it at all in the beginning? Before you answer that one, what was your pitch to restaurants and businesses to kind of start it off? What were you telling them to convince them to kind of use y'all? Did y'all have I know now y'all almost have like a receipt machine at all the restaurants that the apps go through.
Well, we have an iPad at the restaurants.
Right.
Yes.
Did y'all have that originally?
Yeah, that's been from day one. I mean, we developed the app in that way that we could deliver the orders to the restaurant via iPad. So we install an iPad at all of our restaurants. We have over 2,200 restaurants now on the app. But you know, the first restaurants just took a chance. What we sold them on was the fact that we were going to bring them a younger audience, and the restaurants that we were talking to at the particular time, their audience was primarily older folks, and like they said at the time, you know, their customers were literally dying off every day, and they needed to find a way to tap into a younger generation. And so we were convinced that, you know, apps were the way to tap into a younger generation. So we sold them on that idea. And in the beginning, when it was carry-out only and the orders were very sparse, you know, I think they started to doubt whether we would deliver or not. But I don't think there's any doubt anymore. I think with 2,000 some odd restaurants on the platform, and you know, last year alone we did over 70, well, about $38 million in food sales on WAITR. This year we'll do over $150 million in food sales on WAITR. That's $150 million worth of new business that restaurants have as a result of WAITR.
Right.
And so we're very proud about that.
Right, because you're bringing them that market, which is they wouldn't have gotten those sales if not for y'all. The people that didn't want to show up to the restaurant, they were going to go to fast food or something instead.
Yeah. Well, even the people who show up at restaurants that just want the convenience of on-demand delivery.
Right.
So we don't cannibalize the existing restaurant market, and that's what restaurateurs in the early days were worried that we would take their dine-in business. What they've seen is that we've expanded their business as a whole, and in most cases, it's expanded their business by 15 to 25%. And it's not just the delivery that we do. Customers use WAITR for discovering new restaurants as well now. They like to look at the photos on the menus, so they use our app as the menu when they're sitting down in the restaurant sometime. And so it really has helped restaurants expand their business beyond their physical borders.
So how did people find y'all at first? Was it just word of mouth? Did y'all advertise on Facebook? What were y'all doing to kind of get it out there?
Yeah, so we did a little bit of traditional media in the very beginning in Lake Charles when we first launched. Television, radio, newspaper, those kinds of things. It worked okay, not great. Television worked the best out of all of those. But where we really hit our stride is when we started buying digital ads on Facebook. We could do install ads on Facebook, so someone could read about us and then immediately click the install button, and it would download the app onto their phone. And so when we started doing that digital advertising, that's when we really started to see exponential growth.
And so when did y'all start that advertising?
We started dabbling in it in mid to late 2015. We had only done traditional media up to that point. I made a decision in January of 2016 that I felt it was going to be best for the company if we spent the bulk of our advertising budget on digital. The early tests that we had done were proving very productive. And so we shifted the bulk of our budget to digital in January of 2016, and it was like night and day after that. I mean, in all of 2015, we did 57,000 orders company-wide on our platform. We do 70,000 orders a week now. So, and the bulk of the beginnings of that business started through our digital advertising on Facebook and Instagram, and now we do LinkedIn and Pinterest and Google AdWords and others.
Right.
That drives about 12 to 15% of our installs, and then word of mouth and referrals drive the balance of the installs.
So let's talk about the growth of WAITR, because it has really exploded in the last 2 years. Kind of take me through, what was your user base after the first year, and where is it now?
As far as number of users, we're probably approaching 1 million users, maybe a little more. I haven't looked at the aggregate user number lately. We don't really. It's one of the metrics we look at periodically, but we monthly, weekly, daily we look at numbers of installs, new installs, to new account creations, to new purchases, and so those are the numbers I pay more attention to. But we have over 250,000 active daily users. So those are people, or monthly users, excuse me. Those are people who order on a monthly basis. Like I said, it's probably close to 1 million total users. And the vast majority of those users order from time to time, maybe not monthly, but from time to time. But we have a super high retention rate on those folks that actually order on WAITR.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So, you said you're getting 70,000 a week about orders?
About, yes.
And so I'm assuming that there's quite a few of those that are, multiple time customers. They might use WAITR 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, we have the WAITR Power users. Those are folks that use it more than 3 times a month. We have many who use it more than 10 times a month. Those are the super power users, we call those. But look, I mean, we eat usually 3 meals a day. If everyone out there is like I am, my wife and I really, the idea for WAITR and the idea for Moe's to Go came out of a conversation of just what's for dinner every night, right? So we still have those conversations. For us, it's really easy now. It's just WAITR. So either she'll start a group code or I'll start a group code. I'll send it to her. She'll send it to me, whatever the restaurant that person picks, the other person orders from that restaurant, whatever they want, and then it shows up at the door. So it's just the convenience of it, I think, that people like, and that's what keeps our user frequency moving so high is that it's just too convenient to not use it.
And so how does WAITR actually make money? Is it just taking a percentage of the orders that are placed through WAITR at the restaurants?
Well, we have a number of different ways that we make money. Restaurants pay us a small fee to onboard onto the platform, and that covers the cost of doing the food photography and
So
sending
it's
our
y'all's
staff
food
out.
photography.
It's our food photography.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we have staff photographers that do the photo shoots in all the restaurants. Those are W-2 WAITR employees.
Gotcha.
So they pay the small fee up front, and then we take a small percentage of every order. It's not a large percentage, but it's incremental business for the restaurant, so it's not costing them money. It's an investment they're making in growing their business, and we've proven that it's an investment. It's not a cost.
Right.
It might cost them a few dollars to get a few $1,000s a month. So it's considered an advertising investment, if you will, but it's an investment in growing their business.
Well, it seems like, the restaurants that have you are staying with you. So what have they said to you? Have they mentioned the kind of growth that they're getting, that how they're excited that WAITR has given them that extra customers they weren't getting before?
Yeah, we've had a number, many of the restaurants we talk to on a regular basis have told us, how it has helped them grow their business. Like I said earlier, 15 to 20% or maybe more, 25% in some cases. So we know it's helped. I'll give you just an anecdotal story that a restaurateur sent me an email one time telling me thank you because for the first time in 4 years, he had earned enough money, additional money through WAITR for he and his wife to take a vacation for the first time in 4 years. And so,
wow.
It makes a difference. It makes a difference to restaurateurs. It makes a difference to the consumer who's just trying to save time and have the convenience so that they can use their time more wisely in other ways. It's a great partnership between WAITR, our restaurant partners, and our consumer partners. We give restaurants access to close to 1 million consumers now in many different markets. So I travel from Lake Charles to Lafayette to Baton Rouge to New Orleans to Tuscaloosa. I use WAITR in all of those places. I find new restaurants in every market that I go into. So it's a great way to discover new restaurants, and that's another benefit to the restaurants.
So is that what y'all do for company lunch? You just WAITR a new restaurant each day over here?
Pretty much, yeah. We do a group order and have it brought in every day. So everybody kind of does their own group orders. Sometimes with a smaller group. Sometimes we'll do a company-wide lunch, and I'll buy lunch for the whole office. It's really convenient because everybody can just order on their own phone on WAITR, use the group code that I send out, and it all puts it on my check. I pay the bill. I'm always stuck paying the bill.
Of course.
And we order regularly.
How many employees are you at right now?
So full-time corporate employees throughout our WAITR system, we're at about close to 200, just under 200. Overall employees, including all of our WAITR drivers that are out there, we're at 2,000 or above. So it's a considerably large organization. Started from, 5 guys in a room,
right,
to now, we have offices in 20 markets in 4 states and employ people in 4 states, the vast majority of them here in Louisiana where we have our corporate offices. But it's been really fun and exciting to see that we've been able to grow. We've been able to build a startup company here in South Louisiana.
Right.
And we raised all of the funds, all of the money that we raised to start the company. We've raised $16 million to date. And we've done all of that right here in South Louisiana.
So no Silicon Valley money or anything?
No Silicon Valley money. It's all Southwest Louisiana and Acadiana money.
That's incredible. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Well, talk to me a little bit about what kind of jobs are available here at WAITR. I know you're talking about, you have drivers, but I know you have a lot of software developers. I'm sure you have customer service. You said you have food photographers. So what's the variety of jobs here?
Yeah, it runs the gamut. Our customer success team, we're always looking for new members to join our customer success team. Our restaurant success team, which is the group that works with all of our restaurant partners to onboard their menus and make sure that the photo shoots get scheduled and done. Our photographers, we're always looking for new staff photographers. Accounting department, software engineering, we are in desperate need of hiring some additional software engineers. So if you got software engineering experience, you want to work in Acadiana, You want to work in Louisiana, be sure to look us up at WAITRapp.com, and that's Waiter with no E. But look us up at WAITRapp.com and come and apply.
Yeah, I did see that that you were saying that you would love to hire. I mean, I know that UL has a great, software engineer program. So I saw an article maybe about you talking about, those people should consider applying to WAITR.
Yeah, and we've hired quite a few of them, but we have positions for quite a few more.
So why Louisiana? I mean, I know you're from here, and it's always good to be home. But like, what has that done for business for you?
Well, one thing about Louisiana residents is that it's a very high native population. Louisiana as a whole. I think I read something someplace that said 85% of the Louisiana population is native, which is one of the highest percentages of native population in the country. Yeah. But why Louisiana? Because it was home. It's where I grew up. I grew up in Acadiana. Many venture capital groups that I talked to when I was trying to raise money said that we'd have to move outside of Louisiana to be able to make this a success. We couldn't hire enough engineers in Louisiana in order to make it happen. I disagreed. I believe that we could. We certainly were able to raise the money here. And between George at the Southwest Louisiana, George Swift at the Southwest Louisiana Alliance in Lake Charles, and Greg Gautreaux with LIDA here, both of those leaders rolled out the red carpet for WAITR for us to build our company in Louisiana. And so they made it easy for us in Lake Charles and in Lafayette, respectively, to grow our company here. And so we made a commitment to do that, and we are still 110% committed to expanding and growing right here in South Louisiana.
Other companies or other delivery type services, whether it's food or people, I'll just mention Uber for a minute. They they did get some flack about the drivers in general, how it's a good way to make a little side income, but because they're the drivers and they're paying for their gas and putting the mileage on their car, people said sometimes it wasn't the best. So what does WAITR do to prohibit that or to make it a worthwhile job for drivers?
Well, I think there's a couple of differences between what we do and what Uber does. One, the majority of our drivers are W-2 employees, either full-time employees or part-time employees. What that means is that if they're full-time, they qualify for benefits. So,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
They have access to health care benefits, the benefits, paid vacation, those kinds of things that we offer. So it's very different than the Uber model where they're all contract drivers and they're self-employed and so on. So that's a big differentiator. We do still use some contract to fill in the gaps, but we prefer to hire all of our drivers as full-time drivers. So we only fill in the gaps if we're not able to hire enough full-time employees. And so far we've been able to hire enough full-time employees in most cases. So it's a big difference, and the income that they earn, the number of deliveries they can do per hour is very different than the number of trips they can do with Uber in a lot of cases.
And tips are built in. Unlike Uber, they don't really tip, but for you guys, they can leave a tip.
Yeah, the consumer can leave a tip in the app, and it goes directly to the driver. So what we found in surveying our drivers is that they feel like they make fairly decent money. It's a great job for them to have as a second job or even as a primary job, as a full-time job. We have a bunch of different scenarios. We got students and other folks. You do have to be 18 to drive for us, but beyond that,
and a clean record.
And a clean driving record. We do background checks for both motor vehicle background and criminal background checks. So a lot of differences, but we built our company on employees and not just on contractors.
How soon after you opened in Lake Charles did you move to other regions of Louisiana, Lafayette? Where else in Louisiana are you?
So in Louisiana, we cover all of the major cities with the exception of Monroe right now, and that's coming soon.
Okay.
So we're in Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, all of the New Orleans suburbs, Shreveport, and we just recently launched Alexandria, which has been doing really well.
Awesome.
So we cover most of Louisiana. We cover a lot of East Texas from Houston eastward, and now northeast Texas with Longview and soon to be Tyler. We are also in Mississippi. Gulfport was our first entry into Mississippi. Jackson will come up soon, and other cities in Mississippi. And then we're also in Alabama. So Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Hoover, those were our first two. Birmingham's coming up soon, and Mobile is coming up as well. So we'll continue to expand throughout the Gulf Coast as we continue to grow.
What's the what's the plan for growth continuing on? When I first heard of WAITR, and I believe I'm wrong now, but before I really understood what it was, I thought of it as a great way to access a market that hadn't come to smaller cities yet. You know, like this kind of idea may have been in bigger cities, but Louisiana was not getting that. And I thought of it as a great way to start a business, grow it to all of these smaller cities, and then eventually sell it to one of the larger companies once they finally come to the smaller cities. What I'm realizing now is that WAITR is the larger company now, right? I mean, you expanded.
We're getting there.
You're right. So what is the plan? I mean, was it originally to grow something and then sell it, or was it always?
Yeah, we never really focused on that. We have always said from the very beginning, what we have to do is we have to concentrate on building a great company. Mm-hmm. And if we build a great company, then opportunities will come for our investors and for our employees and for our customers and others. So we're really not focused on what's, selling the company to someone or whatever. Mm-hmm. We're focused on just building a great company, and we've been able to do that, and we'll continue to do that. And as long as we stay focused on that, then great things will happen for our company. And so, and for the region and for Louisiana in general. So I tell our executive team all the time, stay focused on what we know how to, what we do best, and that is to provide service to our customers and deliver the best product that we can deliver. And if others come calling and have an interest in us later, we'll evaluate those things and we'll look at it going forward. And when we started this in 2013, there weren't a lot of people doing it. Even in the big cities, there weren't a lot of people doing it. Right. One or two. Grubhub, I think, which is the largest, was doing it in the big cities. And they had smaller players trying to dabble in it in different cities. Right. But now there's a lot of competition, clearly. We differentiate ourselves in a number of different ways from the competition, user experience being the primary difference. It's a great user experience when you can see the photos of the food, you can order the photos, you can order off the photos, you
right.
can get it delivered to your door and so on. So we're focused on just being the best company that we can be and making our customers the happiest that we can make them. And if we do that, then everything else will happen.
Yeah, I mean, the app is a beautiful app. How many different versions has it gone through since the beginning? I mean, has it always been that clean, or has that been a development?
Yeah, no, that is definitely an evolution. I kid around. Our first logo was a picture of a server, a headless server at that, holding a tray, and we took the tray off his hand, and it was just an arm. And then we said, let's add another arm, so it's a W, so it looked like, he was in a WAITR deal with a bow tie
right.
and two arms making the W, and that was our first logo. But all of that doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, just starting somewhere, that's what mattered, and that's what I've told our team from the very beginning. And so we started with that, and we started with a crappy app. It was a carousel app where you just swipe through the different carousels of the restaurants, and it looked terrible, but it was functional, and people could use it, and they did, and so that was kind of our beta version, and then we rolled out version 1.0, which is a little more similar to what you see today, and then we improved on that in version 2.0, which we launched in February, which is the current version of the app that's out. So we've improved it all along the way, and we still have a long way to go. We have a lot of improvements to make. Of course, developing software, when you do one thing, it creates bugs in other things.
Of course.
And you got to constantly be fixing those things and working on them. But again, that's part of the process of building a company. And so we're in version 2.0 now. Who knows what it'll look like a year from now,
Sure.
even much less 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I do want to touch on that, being that you seem like, and I know this is essential in business, but I'd like to talk about it because there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that may listen to this. But you seem like a person who's not afraid of failure, or who's not afraid to at least try some things. And if you fail, and you learn from it. Like you're saying, the app may have not been the most beautiful app to start off with, but it was functional. And a lot of people may have shied away from that because they were afraid to put out something that wasn't perfect. Aesthetically, it worked like you said. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, you're a risk taker.
Yeah, Yeah, I guess a risk taker. I mean, that's the definition of an entrepreneur, right? But it's calculated risk for the most part. But I have had significant failures, and I've had to bounce back from that, and sometimes that's difficult, because you feel like at times, especially as I got older, you feel like, well, my chances are slipping by me.
Mm-hmm.
But the number one thing I tell entrepreneurs is, if you have an idea, it's not the idea that is the value, and lots of folks confuse that, right? Oh, I can't tell you about my idea because you might steal it or someone else might take it. I gotta get an NDA signed, and I gotta protect it before. No,
Yeah.
It's not the idea. I guarantee you, if you had an idea, if you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea, there are 1,000 other people who have that same idea. The difference is the ability to be able to execute on that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think, that came through a lot of lessons for me, right? I learned how to execute more efficiently and better to be more successful through the failures that I had. And so those failures were not really failures, they were just lessons that I didn't realize were lessons at the time. And so I would tell any entrepreneur, if you're afraid to fail, then entrepreneurship is not for you, number one. And if you have a great idea, tell as many people as you can about it, find out if they like it, and ask them if they would pay for it. And if
Right.
they say yes, then figure out how to execute on that idea, and then you can create a company just like we did with WAITR.
Well, good. Let's jump back a little bit now, because the initial capital to fund WAITR, was that all self-funded through you and the co-founders, or how was that done?
Well, the initial capital was me. My co-founders were all in their early 20s and broke.
Yeah.
And I was not, exactly rich myself. So we just bootstrapped everything, right? We did as much as we could with as little as possible. We used Fluid UI to mock up a mock-up version of the app.
Yeah.
That you could link the mock-ups to each other and then put it on a smartphone and make it feel like it was a real app.
But it
really
yeah.
wasn't. It was just a mock-up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we did, and we took it out to people and we said, hey, here, let me watch you use this. And we got feedback from them about what we needed to change, how we needed to make it better and all. That didn't cost anything. I mean, it was free. You could only do a certain number of pages for free, so we just did those number of pages, but we did it, right? So action is really the difference, is just take action, do something. Find out a non-scalable way to do it that you can do it for, inexpensively, but just do it. Don't think about it and don't plan so much. It's what's called an MVP, right? Just create the minimum viable product you can to get someone to use it. And then if someone starts using it, you can always improve on it and make it better.
So what does customer feedback mean to you? Like, can you maybe give me an example of something along the way where you were doing something and y'all got feedback from people that made you change the way you were doing something?
Yeah, so the carousel is a perfect example of that,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
We did this mock-up. We gave it to people. They gave us feedback. They said that they weren't sure about the carousel, but it really didn't flow well, so they really couldn't tell for sure. We produced an app with a carousel. We gave it to users, and they hated the carousel. They're like, this is ridiculous. You don't know what restaurant you're on, and you try to tap one, and it goes to another one, and it was just, so they gave us a lot of feedback about that. Well, we sat down and said, okay, carousel's not going to work. What's a different UI that we could use? UI being user interface.
Mm-hmm.
That might make more sense to a user. And so we came up with the scroll version. And then we gave that scroll version to users, and it was easier for them to use. Their feedback was positive about that. Oh, yeah, I love the picture on the home page. It's easy to find the menu. It's easy to get to the items, all this. So we knew we had a better design there. So that's what I'm talking about, feedback, is just put something out there, let people try it, let them use it. They'll give you their honest feedback. People are never shy to give feedback.
Right.
They all want to tell you how you don't know something or how you need to make it better, and that's what we did, and we made it better.
So how many people would you say, we're here in the WAITR headquarters in Lafayette right now, and it's a bustling headquarters. I want to talk about that in a minute. But before that, I kind of want to talk about how many people have you gotten to maybe relocate to Louisiana that weren't here before?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of our first employees, Garrett Zinke, was a student at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, was a resident of Daytona Beach, Florida, but believed enough in what we were doing that he decided to move here after he graduated to join our engineering team. And so we've been able to bring some folks in, a few folks in, but for the most part, we try to hire local people. We want to put people in Acadiana and Southwest Louisiana to work. And that's software engineers, customer service, restaurant operations, whatever it might be. So we try to hire here locally. But if there are great people, we want to hire smart people. If there are smart people that are outside of Louisiana that want to move to Louisiana, then we're not opposed to hiring those people. We'll show them how great life can be in South Louisiana, and have them move here, and we've done that.
Okay, so I do want to talk about the headquarters here in Lafayette. So when I first walk in, I mean, first off, it's beautiful. It's clean. It reminds me a lot of a Silicon Valley, headquarters. There's people playing ping pong. There's people diligently working. There's computers everywhere. You got a big screen up there. What is it, tracking orders? What is that up there?
Yeah, it tracks a number of the daily metrics that we have to watch to ensure that our business is healthy, and so we put those things up there. I think the big counter you see there, that's numbers. That's number of orders since inception, and it's well over 2.1 million or so.
Yeah.
And it's growing quickly. So we watch a lot of different things on these screens, but it's mostly the things that impact our operations. The Weather Channel is always up because weather is a huge impact, has a huge impact on our business, both positive and negatively. Rain like we are getting today is perfect. It's a steady rain. It's all day. No one wants to get out. They want to order, but our drivers can still get around town. If we get these flash flood rains, it shuts down our operation as well because our drivers can't get through flooded streets. So we're constantly monitoring those things. So you'll see that here in the office. We have this huge marker board wall that is galvanized metal and chalk wall. So we can write funny messages on our chalk wall, and it's a kind of culture that we want to create here. It's a fun culture. It's a young group. I'm an old man. I'm the old man in the group. You can see everyone else here is fairly young.
Sure.
It's a fun place to work. We work hard and we play hard, and that's what we want them to feel like here. We want them to have all the comforts of home here, but still be able to have a productive work environment. But when they need a break, take a break. Anytime they want, they can take a break, go play ping pong, go play Xbox, PlayStation, whatever it might be, and just enjoy the things that we have around here to help them clear their mind and then get back to work.
So, I mean, where did you learn that concept, right? Because you very easily can make this a very corporate quarters, where people are just in cubicles or whatever working. What inspired you to do this, very open concept, glass, people able to work and play. You got little nap pods, it looks like.
Right.
So, I mean, where does that, how important is that to you? But then also, where did you come up with that?
Well, I lived in Silicon Valley for a while, and so obviously, some of that came from there. But I wanted to create a culture where people woke up in the morning and they looked forward to going to work.
Yeah.
Back in my corporate life, there were days that I woke up and just, resented having to get up and go to work, right? And I never wanted people to feel that way here, and hopefully they don't. But we wanted to create an environment that fostered fun, excitement, and productivity. And I think that's what we've got here. And what I like to call it, this is not Silicon Valley, this is Silicon Bayou. But it's something you might find in Silicon Valley, and we try to create, that type of an environment for people to work.
And I hope you inspire other businesses too with this, because it really does show that Acadiana, Southwest Louisiana, or South Louisiana, and really just the South in general can, accomplish what you guys have accomplished. Between software engineering and beautiful design, a fun office, like that kind of thing is something that, I don't know, maybe we haven't explored yet, and you guys have done it.
Yeah, so maybe we're one of the first in Acadiana. There may be others that I'm not aware of, but I've talked to a number of different business leaders about the relaxed culture that we have, and I mean, most of the people here, aren't on a particular work schedule, but they all work, long and hard hours. They enjoy what they do, but what I would encourage other business owners is find what works for your company, and use what works and the way people like to work to your advantage. And if you do that, they'll be happier getting up to go to work in the morning. They'll be more productive while they're there, and you'll build a better and bigger company than you might otherwise do the traditional way, right? I mean,
Right.
everything's non-traditional here, and I hear that from people all of the time, but we're just building a new tradition, and it's the
Yeah.
WAITR tradition here.
That's a good way to put it. What's something that sticks out to you kind of on your business journey, maybe through WAITR? Is there one particular moment that really makes you smile or reminds you of kind of how y'all got here?
Gosh, there's so many. I think the one moment that I'll go back to every time, in September of 2015, when our business was really taking off, I wanted to provide a reward for our founding team and our engineering team, which was only about 6 of us at the time. And so I took them all to the LSU Florida game. And so we were all at Tiger Stadium for the game. Now, our city managers and operational teams were still back we were only in Lake Charles and Lafayette at the time. But right at halftime, when halftime hit, I think everybody in Lake Charles and Lafayette decided they were going to order WAITR. And all of a sudden, we had all these orders, and it crashed our system.
Wow.
Now, keep in mind that the engineering team was with me in Tiger Stadium.
Right.
Now, because of the way we host our services, we were able to access them via our smartphone, but the problem was everybody in Tiger Stadium was on their smartphone,
your smartphone is
at halftime.
It's not as,
right?
It's a little slower.
So we had 6 phones trying to access our servers to reset the servers so that people could continue to order. And it took us about 15 minutes. Finally, my phone got through and we were able to restart the server. But at that moment, I realized what we had with our co-founders, Manuel Rivero, Adam Brennan, and then also Garrett Zinke, the three of the engineers we had with us. They did whatever it took to restart those servers and get that service back up and running. Now, we realized right then and there we'd have to redevelop our entire software platform, and we did.
To not let that happen again.
For it not to happen again.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a turning point for our company, for our culture, for our business, everything. It was September of 2015, and I'll never forget it.
So is that kind of a rule now in the company where it's like everyone cannot be in the same place? You can't leave, like a designated survivor has to be in the back just in case anything happens.
Well, certainly it is in engineering. So
Yeah.
we always have one of our engineers on call. So there's always someone there to respond to, an outage or something that might go wrong with the software.
Gotcha. What kind of accolades have y'all received over the years? I mean, I know Innovate Acadiana did a spotlight on you, and I know there's others I forget, but what kind of, what has WAITR received?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the most amazing things is our team has been recognized in a number of different ways. The Junior Achievement Business Hall of Fame recently recognized us as Startup of the Year. Louisiana Economic Development picked us as Innovative Business of the Year.
Yeah.
Recently, I was nominated and am a finalist for Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year for the Gulf Coast.
Wow.
If I'm named Entrepreneur of the Year for the Gulf Coast, then I would be in the running for Entrepreneur of the Year for all of the U.S. But it's not an honor for me. That's an honor for all of those who've been involved in making our company great. It's a testament to the work and the effort that they put into making WAITR a household name, or as a lot of people like to remind me, it's now a verb. When you talk about food, what are you going to do tonight for dinner? We're just going to WAITR.
Yeah.
So it's a testament to all of the hard work of a lot of individuals, including our shareholders, our restaurant partners, and all of our consumer users out there who have made WAITR great.
Well, I do want to, not take up too much more of your time. So, and I do appreciate you coming on. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, what kind of percentage of growth? I'm assuming y'all have seen a pretty steady growth month to month. If y'all keep on that track, where do you see yourself in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So this year, our goal is to open up or be in at least 40 markets by the end of the year. We're well on our way for that. I think it's going to happen. Next year, we hope to open up another 20 to 30 new markets again next year, primarily focused on a 12-state area in the Gulf South. But after that, possibly increasing our footprint further north and further west. So, we have a plan. We have 80 cities identified in the Gulf South that we want to expand into in the next 2 years. and we're going to be 110% focused on making that happen.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. Is there anything else that I've missed that you'd like to touch on?
No, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of those who might be listening that are big WAITR fans.
There's a lot.
Thank you.
Everyone knows about WAITR.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you for making us the company that you've made us, and we hope that we never disappoint you. We will always strive to put our customers first, both our consumer customers and our restaurant partners. We've got some great restaurant partners, and I want to thank them as well. But it's been a great pleasure to visit with you today.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Good meeting you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sheauxtime. The podcast is sponsored by no one. Well, not yet at least, but it could be you or your business. So if you know someone, or if you are interested in sponsoring this podcast, get in touch with me. SheauxtimePodcast@gmail.com. Sheauxtime spelled SHEAUX time podcast. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, one of the ways you can really help me out is by making sure you're subscribed to it on iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. It's free and super easy to do, but it helps us out a ton. And if you're really enjoying the podcast, you can leave us a review or a rating on iTunes and on Facebook. It really only takes about 15 seconds. Here, go ahead and do it. I'll wait. Did you do it yet?